crazy time because, I'm going through this divorce. It's COVID. There were fires in Santa Cruz. I had my
Mm,
two kids. My business, like knock on wood, it's doing great. But like, I didn't know, like at the time it was
yeah.
like, who knows? And I had a moment of realizing. I had a moment of, especially it was in the beginning of it, and I was alone in my living room in my house, and I realized that I am like I'm 100% okay, and
Yeah.
I'm going to be absolutely fine, and I'm
Yeah.
there for myself fully as I'm feeling the difficult emotion of being alone or the difficult emotions of worrying about the future and stuff. And that moment, I think, is like the biggest gift that I could have gotten from this whole process, because
Mm,
there is nothing, like, I don't feel like anything can stop me. I guess just,
yeah.
it's like, so yeah, and I can deal with a lot more uncertainty.
Welcome to the Taking Off the Mask podcast. My name is Ashanti Branch, and I'm really glad you joined us. Today's episode is with a guest named Roni Habib. Roni and I met a long time ago when he was a teacher. He's an educator. He's the founder of EQ Schools. He helps educators around the world learn about emotional intelligence so that they can better serve their students. And as you know, as a former teacher, as a person who talks about emotions a lot and tries to navigate my own emotions in healthy ways, this conversation is really deeply moving in a lot of ways. I reached out to Roni because I had learned about some of the unfortunate situ. I'm even trying to think of how to tell you what I was going to say because sometimes it's hard to talk about difficult topics. Um, I reached out to him because I heard about a lot of the students from Santa Clara University who had been who had committed suicide. I don't know if you feel it when you hear about these difficult topics. I'm gonna start over. And I think that one of the things that I reached out to Roni again about was because he was in a documentary called The Edge of Success. And that documentary filmed students and teachers in Palo Alto after there had been a cluster of suicides. And he was going to one of the schools where some of this was happening in Palo Alto, right down the street, around the corner from Stanford University, where many kids and many students' families think that they all should be going to Stanford, that they are going to a school that they should be going to the top of the top, and the pressure sometimes overloads them. If you see the documentary, you'll see young people listing off the dozens of AP classes they have to take to feel like they're going to be able to compete. One of the young men in that documentary, The Edge of Success, um, he's one of the students at Santa Clara University who committed suicide. And I reached out to Roni because I was went to go watch the documentary, and I saw Roni in there. I said, I haven't talked to Roni in a while, and I reached out to him and asked him would he be willing to be in this conversation. He said yes. So I hope that as you hear this conversation between two men, you'll hear it between two educators who really deeply care about young people, about our students, about our community, about people. And I know that sometimes it's hard to hear these topics, and we don't go into a lot of detail, so you don't have to worry about any graphic details. But for some people, even just hearing it kind of creates a little tension. I hope that it allows you to just think about the people in your life who you may not have checked up on in a while. Maybe the people who always got it figured out, the people who always got all the answers, the people who are always helping others. I think sometimes we need to check on those people. You know, today um, we just learned of um, Miss America from 2019. Um, the story is that she also committed suicide yesterday. And what I know more than ever in what we're dealing with in our world, Over the last 2 weeks, we've heard of two adults, right, that we know of, famous, wealthy, popular, all the things that sometimes our teenagers are striving for to be seen and be liked and be loved and be notarized and be known. And we don't even sometimes understand what the pressure is on those people. And so today, more than ever, I just invite you to reach out to people who you love and care about and ask them how they're doing. And maybe when they say fine or good or cool or I'm all right, maybe you go a little deeper and say, yeah, how are you doing for real? Like, tell me more about that. Because maybe they didn't think you cared in the first place. I was with a group of students the other day and I said, why do we always say we are fine when we're not fine? And many of them were like, people don't really care. They don't really care what you got going on. They're just asking you because it sounds good. And how often do we answer that same question with the same response because we also feel people don't care? This movement around masks is about heart. I was talking to a mentor the other day, and I was talking about we got this goal of collecting 1 million masks, and he was like, "Well, tell me this, tell me this. Why 1 million?" And I was like, "Well, you know what? I mean, every mask matters to me. Every one mask matters to me. But I don't know. Isn't that a pretty number? Isn't 1 million a beautiful number? Isn't the million mask movement? Look at those M's kind of rolling off your tongue, like." And I realized that every mask matters. My team will tell you, I take every mask very serious. I take how we take care of them serious. I care about how we wrap them in rubber bands serious. I take how we store them in an office serious. Like they matter because every person that shares with us what's going on behind their mask, I honor their willingness to share some of their truth. And if you don't have anybody that you can talk to, if you're feeling alone or that you don't have anybody to talk to, there are people out there who want to help, who are willing to help. If you've been thinking about hurting yourself, I want to tell you there's a national suicide prevention hotline, a lifeline, they call it. The number is 1-800-273-8255. Again, 1-800-273-8255. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope you hear the passion in Roni's voice around education and supporting these teachers who need to be well equipped, not only with the content knowledge of a subject, but with the care and context of supporting the subjects who they're teaching, those students. Thank you for being a part of this movement with us. We invite you to make a mask. We have some really exciting things going to be coming up in this month of February. So stay tuned. Um, we would like you to be a part of this million mask movement. You can make a mask at 100kmasks.com. We're excited to have you as a part of this journey with us. And we look forward to knowing more about you soon. Please like, share, subscribe. Anyone who you think can benefit from this episode. We look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. Welcome to the Taking Off the Mask podcast. My name is Ashanti Branch, and I'm really glad you joined us. Today's guest is Roni Habib. We talked about this right before the show, and I wanted to make sure I get it right. As you know, I really think names are important. I think it's so important that I do that. So, Roni, thank you for being here on the Taking Off the Mask podcast.
Shanti, it's such an honor to be with you, man. I absolutely love that we're doing this and reconnecting. I love your work. So thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Right on, man. Well, look, how about you tell folks about yourself? You and I have connected a while back, but I'm gonna let you tell yourself about yourself first, and then
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell how this reconnection just recently happened, and then we can jump into the masks.
Yeah, that sounds great, man. So I'm Roni Habib. I'm the founder of EQ Schools, and Ashanti, by the way, pronounced my name beautifully at the beginning. I just want to put that out there. Not many people can do that, so thanks for that, my man. And I absolutely love what I do. I started a company that brings mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and positive psychology training to educators, to leaders in education, to parents as well, so that they can really, the adults can really thrive and then model that to the students that they work with or the kids that they parent. And I speak all over the world. I live in Santa Cruz with my two amazing kids, and I'm telling you, Ashanti, I freaking love what I do. It's just the I can't believe I do like that. I get to do what I do, professionally. Um, and now, the reason I started this company was actually because, is it okay if I go into this long story right away,
Please,
or?
please do.
Okay,
Absolutely.
cool. The reason I started the company was because I was a teacher before. I was a teacher for 15 years, primarily in high school, and I loved what I did back then too. And to be honest, I was a little burnt out even by my third year of teaching. And actually, I had a very intense wake up call one year. I get to school one day and I park my car and I walk out of my car and I walk towards my classroom. It's the morning, but then all of a sudden there's an intercom that goes off telling us we have an emergency staff meeting. So, I go into the quiet room. I sit down, wait to hear what's going on. In comes the principal and she looks totally distraught, Ashanti, and she,
Yeah.
tells us, the story, but she tells us that one of our students committed suicide.
Wow.
And Ashanti, was a moment like first of all, I was stunned by it and it was really hard, and I was hoping, and this might be a little selfish, but I was hoping it wasn't my student. It's a big school.
Yeah.
And she said the name and it was my student. And Ashanti, like that, it like broke me. Do you know what I mean? Like
Wow.
at
Wow.
that moment, just like I felt shattered. But the child, unfortunately, did it in a very public way. He used the train, and everyone was about to know about it. So what we needed to do was to break the news to kids before the news kind of got out. Like and
Yeah.
basically what we wanted to do. Yes, as an educator, this, Ashanti. Like you put yourself aside and you go support the students, and the kids.
Sure.
So I got up, like with all of my colleagues, we got up and we did that. And for a whole day, I supported students. And at the end of the day, his mother reached out to me
Wow.
in an email, and she said, "Mr. Habib, you had a real connection with my son,
Mm.
and I really love for you to speak in his funeral." Because I took her son to, yeah, it was crazy, Ashanti. Like I actually, and it was such a beautiful, powerful moment, really sad moment, of course. And of course, I said yes,
Yeah.
But the reason she reached out partly is because I led a camp for students and I took this child to the camp. And it was all about, it was called Camp Every Town, and it was just a
Nice.
place where it's very like learning about inclusivity and learning about kind of ending or trying to end racism, prejudice,
Yeah.
sexism, all that stuff. So, and he really loved it. He had a great time. But then 3 months later, he committed suicide. And I
Wow.
remember that Saturday walking to the church, and I'm
Mm.
sitting down in the first row, and I see the mother speak about her child, and then
Yeah.
the dad speak about his child, and like at that moment, I like break down, like I'm
Oof.
crying, and then it's my turn to go up and speak, and then I get up on stage and I said what I said in my speech, but at the end of the speech, Ashanti, I don't know if this ever happened to you, but I felt like I had a voice kind of channel through me. I felt this energy channel through me that told me if I'm going to continue to be an educator, there was nothing that was going to stop me from putting my students' well-being first. Nothing.
Yeah.
And I told myself, like, I'm going to teach no matter what I teach, like whether the school tells me I have to teach AP Econ or history or whatever, like I'm going to teach them how to be well first,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
explain to them that that's what I care about the most. So I was like, basically, I was like, I'm going to create this class called positive psychology and teach them how to be well. But honestly, Ashanti, like I wasn't well, I was burning out. I was totally traumatized. And you know how like how
Mm.
kids can smell bullshit from a mile away?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like,
Yes, they can. Yes, they
yeah, so
can.
like you can't do, you know what I mean? Like you can't teach you have to walk the walk, you know what I mean? So like I saw a therapist. I started mindfulness practice in earnest in my life. I actually used
Nice.
positive psychology
Nice.
practices that really like helped me transform as a man, And and then I created the course and I was hoping 25 students would sign up, and it turned out 107 signed up. And that
Wow.
totally blew me away, man. Like that was a moment where I realized like it's not at all
Wow.
about me, it's just the kids and adults just want to know how to be well. And so year after year, like I've seen like hundreds of kids go through this program. And Ashanti, I'm telling you, they're behaviorally changing in front of my eyes. So then I
Yeah.
realized, okay, like we really, like I can use this stuff in my AP Econ class. Some of the
Yeah.
interventions that I do, the lessons that I give, they don't take long. You know what I'm saying? It's like some of them are like 5 minutes.
Right.
And it made it easier for me to teach my other classes. And then I started training other educators, and it started out as a project, kind of like just creating workshops. But Ashanti, they like, it's just mushroomed, like they grew and grew and grew. We
Yeah.
created
Yeah.
conferences and summits.
That's
You were invited to speak in one of our conferences, which didn't end up happening, but it was an amazing event. And
yeah.
it's been an incredible journey, man, to like support at this point, like more than 100 schools and districts just in California and also
Nice.
worldwide. So that's a little bit of my
Nice.
story. Thanks for listening to this long story.
Oh man, no,
But that's my background.
that's not long. That's the story, and that's
Yeah.
I think is even more so incredible about the passion you have. I don't think I knew the history of that piece,
Right.
and I think that when I think about why I reached out to you and was because the documentary you were featured in, um, it 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 resonated, but also there was a student in the documentary who was at that school, who I mean, so folks, as you already recognize this episode, we're talking about really important and deep, meaningful topics. And so maybe you
Right.
feel a little activation, just wanted to name it because maybe
Sure.
your heart is opening.
Mm,
Whatever you feel, I hope is connected to your heart. And if you're in your head about it, if you're finding yourself like going into why are they talking about this, and like maybe
mm,
you just want to get out of your head and jump into your heart right now.
I
Because
love
what I
that.
do know is that there are young people out there where this is the reality and this is the thoughts that
Yeah.
process in their minds. And we meet lots of people with these masks who talk about they've thought about it. They've thought about taking their own life. They thought about not wanting to be here. They thought about their own, am I important?
Sure.
Am I valuable? And what I recognize is that if we don't have enough aware adults,
Right.
plenty of people are
Exactly.
adults who
Exactly.
are just disconnected from their awareness around them. If we don't have enough aware adults, and definitely teachers who are in their own world when this last 2 years, but definitely
Right.
knowing that, man, where do we go when we don't feel like we got it all figured out? Where do we go when we're trying to
Yeah.
navigate
Beautiful
the
word.
the journey of life in a way that feels authentic to us, but also know that people don't care or don't respect it? And how do we make sure that we make the most important things matter? I think that's so
Yes.
important. And
Ah,
so,
that's beautiful.
the reason I reached out to you, and I think
Yeah.
thank you for starting with that story because I uh, before this call, I was like, well, I don't want to break any news to you on this show. Like it's not a breaking news show. It's a real heartfelt show. And
Yeah.
one of the young men from that school who was navigating his own stuff, right? Navigating how to navigate the world and feeling like he didn't want to be here, who was a student at Santa Clara University. He, took his life. And man,
Hmm.
and so this year at Santa Clara University, this school year, I think over
Right.
three, they've had
Right.
three. And I
Right.
think what I recognize in this work with educators, and you probably, as you've been doing this work longer than I have, when I saw you creating EQ schools, I was like super juiced. I was watching you from afar.
That's
I was
awesome.
like, I was still a teacher at the time and trying to figure out how to
Yeah.
get involved. And when I went to that fellowship at the D school is when I really got to your side of the bay, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna connect. I'm gonna connect. And I
Yeah.
did some workshops at Gun and at the schools on that side, and I was really recognizing like we got to have educators who see more than themselves as teachers of a subject. And
Yeah.
I'm glad that you said I will do this. Like, and oftentimes I we probably seen all kinds of teachers who feel forced to do it, don't want to do it, or don't feel equipped to do it. And how do we make sure that they know that it's just building connection?
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
aside from the
Yeah.
subject expert that you are, I think so many educators are content experts,
Sure. Content driven.
content experts. But how
Hmm.
do we become connection experts,
Yeah.
relationship
Exactly.
experts in
Exactly.
addition, right? Because I think that there's some kids who, if they don't have a relationship with you, they're not going to learn from you,
Well,
even if it's at their own detriment, right?
Yeah, I think it's true for most kids, like the truth is, I mean, and in schools it's very clear if you've been a teacher more than like, a couple minutes, like that relationships are number one in terms, like if you,
Yeah,
because at the end of the day, like if you think about learning, right, and teaching
yeah,
and learning, right, like you could stand in front of a class and deliver information.
yeah.
That doesn't mean any learning is happening. Do you know what I
That's
mean?
right. That's right.
And like your goal as an educator is not to disseminate information; it's for kids to learn. So
Yeah,
like
yeah,
so really like the connection that you make with them is absolutely critical. And in fact, so funny that you mentioned relationships and awareness,
yeah.
and the importance for the adult in the room to have self-awareness and social awareness and attunement. All of that is so critical. I'm writing a book now, so I developed a model called ramp. Okay. And ramp
Mm,
basically are the five, it's a four-letter words, but it's like five elements that contribute to anyone's well-being. And it turns out that if you really focus on those five elements, teaching and learning actually becomes more fun and more effective. Like academic achievement improves. And
mm,
just very briefly, like ramp stands for relationships,
okay.
A is for advancement and awareness,
Mm,
uh, the uh, the M is meaning, being connected to our meeting, and P is really experiencing positive emotions in our life. Ideally, a 3-to-1
mm,
ratio of positive emotions to difficult emotions, while still allowing ourselves to experience difficult emotions. Like that's a really
yeah.
important piece. But if as an educator, and then it's just as a person, you decide, okay, I'm going to intentionally allow myself to invest time into those elements, I'm going to ramp up my well-being and my resilience in my life, and frankly my teaching as well. you know
Yeah.
and I, in the book, like I show a whole bunch of different ways of how to do that and how to build it's called, really, if you think about it, it's emotional resonance. Like it's that emotional resonance is when our limbic system, like the emotional reasoning of our brain, is in sync in a positive way with another person. It's like like right now, you and I, we experience
Yeah.
emotional resonance. Why? Because
Mm,
we're just like totally in sync. We love what we're talking about. Like this is super fun. We highly, I mean, I highly admire you. I won't speak for you in terms of me,
yeah.
but but there's resonance.
Absolutely,
And it
man.
turns out that the fastest way to experience resonance is through laughter, and like
Yeah.
through, and so one of the things that I write about in the book and that I show in my workshops with teachers, it's like, hey, let's like invest in moments of resonance, invest in moments of play. Like we actually like play a bunch of games together, and like the adults experience the resonance and the joy, and how these games put us in a mindful state right away, in a state where we're aware of the other person. And so like right away, it's an entry point into joy, positive emotions, and awareness and attunement with other people. And then of course there's a whole bunch of other elements to it. But yeah, sorry,
Man.
I can keep going on forever about this.
No, no, this is exactly what people need to hear, and I think, I
Yeah.
mean, even more so than for teachers, educators, is for parents, adults, and just
Yeah,
even people who don't even have children, but all the people,
totally.
us connecting to each other. Do you know how much do we see today when we watch the people who are supposed to be in charge of this, of
Right.
leading this country,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
operate as if they're suspended in toddlerism, where
Yeah.
you're like, "Are you are
Yeah.
you
Yeah. It's crazy.
are you
Yeah.
an adult toddler?" Right? What's happening,
Yeah.
right? And now you watch it and you're like, "I don't they even know that they're operating like this? Do they
Right.
even know that
Exactly. Is there
they
awareness? Is there an awareness
there
there?
is
Right.
there an awareness even
Yeah.
starting there?"
Yeah.
And I
Exactly.
oh my goodness. And I think that one of the things that, you talked about, and I think that I see when, I'm telling you about from afar, I've been watching your work since before you started. When you first
Oh,
started
right on,
EQ
man.
schools, I want you to know that, like, somebody said, "Have you heard of this program?" And I had not. And when I first heard about it, I was just starting Ever Forward Club. I was
Yep.
trying to get involved. I wasn't doing speaking engagements. I was just a teacher
Uh,
trying to just do really good work, and
yeah.
I
Yeah.
have been cheering you on from
Oh,
from
thanks,
from
man.
afar, man. So I want you to
Really,
know that,
really
and
appreciate that. Thanks.
and when I couldn't present that one year, I was bummed. I was like, "Oh, I've been wanting to
Yeah. No
present," but I think,
worries.
we're gonna make it happen. When
Hey,
it's
for
supposed to
sure.
happen, it will
A
happen,
hundred,
right?
100%, I'm
I think
not even
everything
worried
happens at the
about it.
right time. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
You got it, man. You got it.
Yeah. And one of the things that, you spoke about, I think in terms of like the emotions and what we're seeing with young people today, what I try to do with educators, because I'm not in schools directly as a teacher, but
Mhm.
I'm doing the work from outside in schools, is I
Yep.
try to help educators recognize that just making sure they had enough masks, making sure they had stockpiles of sanitizer, making sure they put arrows on the floor of what side kids were going to walk down the hall.
Right.
They had to have students come back to schools that were going to give them room to process what they had just missed or experienced over that last year.
Right.
And what I saw so many schools do, just come back to business as usual.
Yeah.
And I've
Totally.
and I've seen it.
And it's a
I've
missed
seen.
opportunity, man. It's such a missed opportunity because
Oh man.
I mean, again, it's one of those things that it's like you can't pretend, like you can't pretend that all of a sudden like nothing happened. Like we just went through a collective trauma, you
That's
know.
right. That's right.
So like, how about taking intentional time aside and just say, you know what? Here's the thing. Yes,
Yeah.
academics are important, no question. Of course they are. Like no one's saying they're not.
Yeah.
However, why don't we take, like and 30 minutes a day, 45 minutes a day, to have some time built into the
Yeah.
schedule where we simply allow for space
Yeah.
for students to share and to connect. And we could even, it's
Mhm.
interesting because like a lot of
Yeah.
educators, it's kind of interesting because I find that it's particularly true in high school, simply because high school teachers, and by the way, I freaking love teachers. I think they're amazing people. Okay, let's just put that out there, number one.
Me
And
too.
with that,
Me too.
yeah, for sure. And with that, I think that like the topic of emotions and the topic of bringing, like creating holding space and creating space for students to share can feel a little intimidating, especially for high
Yeah.
school teachers because they consider themselves content experts
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
opposed to connection experts, as we talked about. Although some of them are absolutely amazing at both, But
That's
what's
right. That's
interesting
right.
is, so you could but there's ways around it, right? Like you can provide teachers, for example, with prompts just to start off, like just restorative circle prompts, right? Where it's like, hey, tell me about one person in your life you deeply care about. Tell me one thing you struggle
Mhm.
about. Like to talk to me
Yeah.
about one thing that was particularly tough about the pandemic. Like there's all 30, 40 prompts that you could put together and just like have discussion starters. And a lot of time, Ashanti, here's what I find:
Mm.
like more than anything, what people want in the world is to feel seen and to feel heard and to feel understood. And if you create the
Mm.
space and hold that space for them without giving any solution, without, you're not fixing a problem, you're just simply like holding space for them and telling
Yeah.
them, hey, you know what, you're not alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're struggling through this together, but you're not alone. And I'm not leaving. Like I'm with you right here. You know, that alone makes such a massive difference for really for anyone.
That's right.
And then they can internalize it to themselves with some self compassion and understand that, like, if they're not there for themselves, who's there for them? Like they're able, and if not now, then when? Right? They're actually able to really internalize it, and that to me, that's massive, right?
Yeah.
That's like that we win the game. If we do that, we win the game.
And I think what's beautiful now is that I think more young people are beginning, and definitely we have work to do with them, are beginning to like advocate for themselves. I think that when I
Yeah.
first started teaching in 2001,
Yep.
2002, like
Yep.
like there first of all there was no cell phones, there was no
Right.
Facebook,
Right.
there was
Right.
no Instagram, there was a lot less. I mean, that was not that long ago, but it was almost a generation ago, right? Where
Yeah.
the students weren't sucked into all of the things that they kind of currently get sucked into, but they were sucked in different ways. There was
Totally.
still pressure, there was still peer pressure, there was still emotional
Sure. Of
baggage.
course.
And I think that now I think students are starting to trying to find their voice. And I think that one of the things that is a benefit of the social media world is we can get the message out farther and faster. And some of the
Mhm.
danger is that you have a lot more misinformation you have to navigate through and
For
help
sure.
young people to navigate through, to help parents navigate
Yeah.
through.
And also, like think about this, especially when it comes to kids. Like, so when you and I were in middle school, it's like, like something, let's say something embarrassing happens, right?
Yeah.
So we experience shame about this, right? And
Yeah.
but the shame kind of ends after maybe like a day or two because it dissipates, and all that.
Yeah.
And now, like, boom, like middle school, it's on. You do something stupid. It's on social media. The shame's amplified, and so like, how does a child? So it's
Mm,
like it's more important, in my opinion. It's more important than ever that we provide not only students but adults also with the emotional intelligence skills of knowing how to regulate shame, how to
yeah.
regulate fear, how to even be aware that they're fearful.
Mm,
Like, I'll take a little bit of a tangent, but like, let's talk about other really important topics like social justice topics, right? Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
we like having so a lot of schools are doing work, and not just schools, organizations too, like businesses and stuff, do work around equity work, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
social justice work. And but what's interesting is that what a lot of these organizations don't understand is that you can't spell equity without EQ. You know, like, you have to have emotional intelligence skills to be able to have conversations and
Yeah.
an underst like that are fruitful when it comes to equity. Like,
Mm,
for example,
that's right.
we need to, like, let's say that you're in a classroom, right, and you
Yeah.
bring the topic of implicit bias, which you and I know is implicit bias is very, like, it's just is a fact. Like, it for all of us. Do you know what I mean? Like, each one of
Yeah.
us has implicit bias. It doesn't matter what color or creed you are. Like, we just have that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but it can be a very intimidating like, it could be an intimidating topic for those who are typically who have more power societally, right? And so, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's easy for, let's say, I'm just gonna say, like, it might be easier for a white teenager boy to feel defensive, to feel like, oh, you're bringing this up and
Yeah.
this feels threatening to me,
Yeah.
but they're not even aware that it's threatening to them. Does
Right.
that make sense? And so, like, if they are able to have the awareness, and then they're able to be aware, oh, like, I experience some fear right now, and then
Yeah.
are able to actually regulate their fear, then they are able to get
Mm,
curious about the experience of the black girl who's right next to them. You know what I mean? And actually
yeah.
say, like, hey, I don't know what your experience is. I'm
There it
not going to
is.
pretend to know what your experience, because I don't know what it is. But I want to
There it
know.
is.
I'm interested, like, I want to imagine and I want to know. So tell me. And I'm
Yeah.
willing to be educated. Like, I'm willing to have that humility, or be humble to say, yeah, you know, yeah, I don't know, so I want to know. But there's
That's
no
right.
way you could do that if the person is in fear. As soon as they're in fear, they're defensive. As soon as they're defensive, there's no empathy. Like, in order to have equity, you have to have empathy. In order to have empathy, you need to be present and
Mm,
curious about somebody else. So all
man.
those things, it all comes together. You know what I mean? To this important work of really being of well-being, resilience, and emotional intelligence.
Yeah. Oh, man. Man, I think this may be the first of a many conversations we're gonna
Right on, man.
reinvigorate around these topics, and maybe what we do is you and I will jump into our work right now. We'll do some of
Yeah,
our work around these masks, right? I
yeah,
think you
totally.
started off your intro with like really a beautiful reveal, and thank you for sharing that. And
Sure, sure.
um, but I'll let you say we always let our guts goes first, so decide who shares their mask first. So you as the guest can decide. Either you go first or I go first.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, I'm happy to go first, but my kind of child in me wants to, like, know more about you. So
Okay.
I'd love for you to go first. You know what I'm saying? I'm
All right.
curious about you. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, here I'm gonna show my picture and I'll show you I just showed the front. Here we go. This is the front. So that's what I drew today.
Oh,
It's a mess.
cool.
It's a messy head right there.
I love it.
Here's the words I wrote. I wrote funny, serious, and passion.
I love that.
And I think yet I don't know if it was this morning or last night. I don't know what I even heard. I remember just having like I think I was trying to figure something out, and my brain was like going all over, but and I just started laughing. It was actually this
Mhm,
morning. It was actually this morning, trying to keep
mhm.
track of what is when, and I was just like, "Why am I taking this so serious? Why am I like
Yeah, yeah,
overthinking this thing?" Right? I just
yeah.
started laughing, and I think, but I usually don't write funny first. I usually write serious first because I think
Oh,
I'm
interesting.
more serious. As much as I really want to just be funny all the time
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
laugh all the time, I think I have, my goals and dreams are so much bigger, right? My
Yeah.
goals and dreams and my expectations of myself is so huge that
Mm.
I that it like, funny, you probably wouldn't when students would describe me at the end of the year, they'd be like, "Oh, he's always yelling." I'm
Oh,
like,
interesting.
"Yelling? Oh, I don't even yell. Like, my voice
Yeah.
is just loud as it is." But because
Yeah.
I was serious all the time,
Right,
it wasn't
right.
like he's very funny, even though I like to laugh with them and at them and at
Yeah,
myself,
totally.
right?
Yeah,
Uh,
for sure.
but today, that one showed up first, which is not usually often. And then passion. I think this work that you're talking about. Like I'm like sweating. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
exactly the work that I want to be doing in the world. And I
Mhm.
think we we need to help this education system nationally to really
Mhm.
rethink how education is being done and how it's
Yeah,
being done to kids as opposed to for them and with them.
right.
And I think that that's part of my
Exactly.
passion is, and now as an outsider, and and this is part of the work that I think you and I can find time to discuss because I watched you build this organization while you were, from a teacher, and I
Yep.
was still a teacher at the time, trying to
Yeah.
like figure out how to do it. And I think as an outsider, I become the salesman, right?
Sure.
And now I got to like I I know you need this, but now I'm having to tell you that you need it, and to tell you that there's a cost because
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
I have to survive and I have to run an
Yeah, sure.
organization,
Of course, of
and
course.
that becomes the most difficult conversation, and so
Sure, sure,
that's
definitely.
the front of my mask 'cause just trying to navigate that sometimes.
Yeah, I super appreciate you sharing that. That's really I love how real and authentic and vulnerable you are. That's a beautiful quality, man. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
for sure.
Alright, so you're up. You're
Okay,
on front. You're front, and then I'll do the back after you do the front. Yeah.
got it. So let me just ask for clarifying. The front is the things that we want to share, right? Or like yeah, like it's easy for us to. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Cool.
the things that you gladly let people see about you.
Yeah,
The things
totally.
yeah,
Things that
yeah,
loud.
absolutely.
Okay, so I wrote. So here's what I wrote for the things that I'm gladly, and I don't know if it's easy for you to see or not, but I can read them too.
Okay, great.
So, so the first one I wrote, like my ability to give and receive love, something that
Mm,
I just love to share, and I love for people to see it. It's one of my top character strengths. So
mm,
it's kind of comes easy for me, and I love it. Uh, and funny enough, like one of the things that it's easy, that I love to share and it's easy. I think it's true for most people. It's like my success, right? It's like, oh, like here, like I'm this wonderful person. Like here's all of my success and stuff like that, right? Like that's easy to share, and it's like, but it's ego driven, right?
yeah,
And I think, and I as long I mean, at least I have awareness about it. That's like
yeah. That's
it comes
excellent.
from the ego, and it. I think all of us have that to an extent. And then just like my playful fun side, I was going to say my playful fun side is another thing that I really enjoy, like kind of putting it out there. um so so yeah, those are mine. I just wanted to respond to one of yours, if that's is it okay if I just respond real quick to
Absolutely.
one,
Yeah,
because I
please,
think
please.
that one of the things you shared, in terms of like having that difficult conversation with, like, prospective clients, where you're like, hey, this work's important and here's what the cost is and all of that. I think even that, like, it's such a beautiful growth edge for any entrepreneur like you and I, to be able to
Yeah,
really step into that power, and to do the internal work necessary to move through any, what I call, like, gremlins in our minds,
yeah.
like that, like the itty bitty shitty committee in your mind. That basic, like that voice that tells you you're not enough, or you're too expensive, or
Oh,
whatever it is. You know what I mean?
oh man, yes.
Here's the crazy thing. Like, you and I both know that, number one, this work, it's interesting because actually I find that this work, it like needs less and less explanation as time moves on. Like, people finally
Yeah,
are getting it. Oh yeah, like this. Yeah, 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 this stuff is really, really important.
yeah,
And and the other piece is, like, there's a lot of money, like, in in schools and professional development, and
yeah.
and frankly, not just schools, organizations as well,
That's right.
and rightfully so. Like, you need to invest in your human resources. It's really,
That's
it's
right.
absolutely key and important. And it's both you and I are not, we're doing it to create good impact in the world. We're not
That's
doing this
right.
to
That's
become
right.
millionaires. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is
Yeah.
just, we're doing this because like, if we wanted to become super wealthy, we would do something else. You know what I mean? And that's okay.
True.
Uh,
Very true.
but like you said, we have to live, we have to survive, and that's okay too.
That's
It's good
right.
to, yeah. Sorry,
Uh,
that's kind of something I wanted to put out
no,
there
I'm
and share.
glad
And
you did. No, it's I think
if you
it
want, we
connects to
can
my
delve. Yeah, we can delve more into that at some other time with another podcast, because there's a lot there to unpack, especially around like masculinity and around yeah, just that masculine energy. And I actually feel like, interestingly, when it comes to sales
yeah.
and it comes to service, it's combining the masculine with the feminine, like
Yeah.
energy, that really leads to great results, because at the end
Yeah.
of the day, like, we're coming from a place of service and support, right? And
Yeah.
if it's a
Yeah.
match, then it's great, and if not, it's not, it's okay.
And I think that what you just said right there. I think when I thought about what I was saying for the front, it started to connect to the back, because I think there's
Yeah,
that fine line between the parts of myself that I actually talk about, the passion, purpose, and I don't talk about the things here, right? The
right.
worry, the
Yeah,
doubt,
yeah,
and the
yeah,
and
yeah, totally.
I've never written the word aging before. I've never
Wow.
written it until
Yeah,
the other day when I was
yeah.
like, why was getting out of that chair felt like
Yeah.
different than it had before, and I was like, that's nothing, that's nothing,
Yeah,
and in my
right.
mind, I'm like, what does that, I'm on a men's team with a man who's in his 70s,
Oh, right
and
on.
every so often, he's in the season of, like, talking about this idea of aging, and
Mm,
only recently that I began thinking of my own, um, like,
sure,
I know that life and death is part of life, right? Part of this
sure,
experience on earth,
sure,
right?
sure.
But only on my own, thinking of my own, and I'm like, "Oh, wow." Like, I think, this season of wearing I think the heat from my
Yeah.
breath has increased the number of grays that have popped out of my beard over the last year.
I
I'm like, "What's going
love it.
on?"
I
They're
love
they're they're
it.
exponentially growing. They're like, "What's
Yeah,
happening here?"
yeah.
I
But
was
hey,
like the other day,
Ashanti,
I was like
at least you still have hair, you know what I mean? Some of us don't have hair, I'm just saying.
Oh, man. Well, there's that season of the lock system that begins to say, "Okay, why is it are my roots thinner? Like, what's
Yeah,
going on
right.
with this?" And then asking that question, like, I
Yeah.
don't wanna be the guy with, like, a dread hanging on by a thread, you know? It's like like, "No!" Like,
Ah!
eh
I
oh my god.
love it.
So
That's
all
so
of those
funny.
things, like the worry, the doubt, the organizational growth,
Yeah,
like having big
totally.
dreams for myself and having dreams for the team that we're trying to build, and like
Yeah,
what like I think those are things that I in this podcast I talk about it more than ever, because it's me sharing my mask, but when I
yeah,
leave this 1 hour conversation, it more gets shut down to the recesses of
right.
like, get things done, go
Yeah,
busy,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
get
yeah,
focused,
yeah.
right? But I
Totally,
think those are some
totally.
things that I think about a lot.
Oh man, I'm so grateful that you shared those with me, because I now I don't feel alone.
Awesome, awesome.
It's so
You're
funny.
not.
The stuff you shared is pretty much exactly what I shared. What I wrote. I wrote. I mean, speaking of worry, I specifically wrote about like financial worries. Like compulsive, fearful thoughts around finance, which is funny because like I uh, I have more money than I've ever had in my life. Like right now, it's like
Mhm.
I'm financially like quite stable, but and like my work affords me a crazy amount of abundance, and our my mind, like it's still there. It's still, the worry is still there. It's so funny how our brain works. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know, I have I have friends of friends who literally are millionaires and are still worried about money. It's the craziest thing. But
Yeah.
so like, yeah, like that stuff comes up, and it's not even like, it's interesting because I thought about this, and it's not. at the root of it, it's more just like safety, like,
Mm.
just like,
Yeah.
am I
Yeah.
like looking through all the little like possible threats that might happen like in the future.
Right.
Our brain,
Right.
it's interesting. I think it was I might have heard this from Tony Robbins, funny enough. He says something like, our brain is not made to make us happy, our brain is designed to make us survive. And I think it's true, right? Like our brain,
Mm.
like the hardware that we have is the same hardware we had, when we were hunter gatherers and needed to flee from tigers and stuff, and
Right.
lions in the forest. And now we're like worried about, so now we're worried about, oh, like, do I have enough savings? Do I have enough, like, and it feels like a real threat, even though it's not really a threat, but so
Mm.
that's one of my things. Another one is that I wrote is like fear of being alone. I, just for vulnerability's sake,
Mm.
I'll just, yeah, I'll just share very honestly and vulnerably with you. I went through a divorce in the last, like about a year and a half ago, and it was very hard. And now just to be totally clear, it's also 100% a gift. Do you with me? Like, I find that it's such a good thing, not only for me and actually
Yeah.
for my ex-wife, but even for my kids. And I was mostly worried about my two kids, right? That's the thing that scared me the most. And I actually see that
Yeah.
there's such a gift in that, even for them. So, and it was hard. And now, I'm in a relationship with an amazing woman who
Nice.
I'm just like crazy, like I'm crazy about, and she's crazy about me, which is all great. But like the whole experience has made me learn to live with loneliness, and
Yeah.
like accept, like not necessarily make loneliness wrong, or like it's a bad emotion, but more just
Yeah.
like really learn how to deal with, not how to deal, but how to like welcome in sadness, welcome in loneliness, welcome in all those things.
That's right.
But the fear of it is definitely present sometimes, and so like I have that fear from time to time. And then the last thing
Yeah.
I said
Mm.
was, by the way, I'll say one more point about this. I got to a place, it's such a crazy time because, I'm going through this divorce. It's
Yeah.
COVID. There were fires in Santa Cruz. I had my
Mm.
two kids. My business, like knock on wood, it's doing great. But like, I didn't know,
Mm.
like at the time, it was
Yeah.
like, who knows? And I had a moment of realizing. I had a moment of, especially it was in the beginning of it, and I was alone in my in my living room in my house, and I realized that I am like, I'm 100% okay, and
Yeah.
I'm going to be absolutely fine, and I'm
Yeah.
there for myself fully as I'm feeling the difficult emotion of being alone, or the difficult emotions of worrying about the future and stuff. And that moment, I think, is like the biggest gift that I could have gotten from this whole process, because
Mm.
there is nothing, like, I don't feel like anything can stop me. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
it's like, so yeah, and I can deal with a lot more uncertainty. I can deal with a lot more, just, yeah, and which I think is so important in our journey, Ashanti,
Yeah.
especially as trailblazers, and as entrepreneurs who, let's face it, like we don't have a tenure, we don't have a, it's like
Yeah.
it's a bit of a roller coaster, but it's a really good one.
Oh
um
man.
and then the last thing I wrote was my physical limitations. Funny enough, like talking about aging, it's like hard for
Mm.
me to, like, I can't run anymore. I can get the elliptical and stuff, but it's hard for me to run
Yeah.
because of like a hip flexor thing that I got.
Yeah.
And like, I yeah, it's one of those things that it's not easy for me to accept, like I find that there's a challenge that I have around like
Yeah.
accepting aging, but I think that what the gift in there is like that it's like basically a little like reminder every single day to be like, okay, are you going to love your body, or are you going to
Yeah.
ignore it? like
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
starts here. It's all like, talking about mindfulness and presence and all that. It
That's
starts
right.
with the body. We spend so much time up here in our head, which puts us in the past or in the future. To
Wow.
be present, you want to be in the body,
That's right. That's right.
and realize that it's such a gift. Like your heart, is, as long as it beats, you live. Like you didn't have to work for it. It just like pumps blood to all your organs. Like there's just, it's so, we just take our bodies and our health for granted, and it's
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, so I that's kind of my work around that.
Oh man.
Yeah,
Man, thank you. Thank you for sharing those. And thank you for the specificity on the worry. Because I think
yeah.
the worry about money is one that, boy, oh boy, if I got there's a video I'm gonna probably share. I made it last year, but I didn't share it, or made it in 2021 or
Hmm.
2020. We lost 100% of our work 2020.
Right,
Like
right.
100 like every time somebody called and canceled on, we would put
Sure.
like this yellow dot on the calendar,
Yep, yep.
and literally I kept the calendar's like right across from me, right? And I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
"Oh my god." And in my mind, I'm showing up for work, I'm doing work, I'm working hard, but my
Yeah.
brain is like, "What are we gonna do?
Yeah,
Like,
totally,
what are
man.
we gonna like, how?
Totally.
What's going what's going" like, everything,
Yes,
100%. And I
yes.
and I literally I remember one day when the last one got canceled, and I knew they were all gonna get canceled eventually.
Yeah,
I had to just walk I walked outside. I remember just walking
right,
outside, and
right.
there's a park behind our in this area. I had
Yep.
to just walk to the park, and I was just like, "What's going on?" Like, just
Yeah.
like all the
Dude,
moments of like, Ashanti, you were an engineer, you had your tenure as a teacher, you gave
right.
all that up, and now you're figuring out here trying to like run this organization, and now the world has shut down. Now what?
Right.
And I really
Totally.
felt like I felt afraid, I felt fear,
Yeah.
I felt
Yeah.
worry, I felt doubt, I felt,
Totally.
do I run go get a teaching job and make sure that I
Right.
can,
Right.
like I grew up poor. I
Yeah.
made a promise to myself that I would never ever
Mhm.
as an
Yeah.
adult
Yeah.
feel that
Yeah.
again, you know?
Yeah.
And those
Yeah.
moments of like working so hard, like, and feeling
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm missing something. I know I got some skills to work on still, but
Right.
man, like I can't work any harder. So how
Yeah.
do I work smarter? How do I like I don't know. And it was a moment of
Yeah.
that year dropped me to my core of like,
Yeah.
what is your purpose? Why are you doing this? Like,
Oh,
oh, I'm not doing it for money. You're right. But I gotta survive. I made a
yeah, of
promise to
course.
myself.
Of
I made
course.
a promise to my 12-year-old, 15-year-old, 17-year-old self that I would never
Yeah.
live like this when I become an adult. And so
Yeah.
that continued fighting with that promise I made to myself. Like, okay, so
Right.
what does that mean? What does that mean next? What do we got to do? How do we pivot? And it was more of just like,
Totally.
okay, let's get back to it. Right? It was more of a moment of like, I needed to get to my
Yeah.
heart was breaking. You know?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, man.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the beautiful thing. It's, first of all, thank you again for being so, like, I just love talking to you, man, because you're real, like, and we can share our emotions with one another. I think that's
Yeah,
beautiful,
man. Thank you.
yeah, and I love holding space for you in that way, and have you hold space for me. I'll tell you, I had, what's beautiful is that you did the work. Like you actually slow down, and you connected with your heart.
Yeah.
Like you connected with all the difficult, perhaps,
Mm,
but interestingly, not just difficult, but I think in a way beautiful emotions that came up, right? Like the fear, the shame, the maybe the the uncertainty, and all of that that can come with it.
yeah.
Man, I had the exact same experience. I went on a walk one day, like it was insane, man. Like I think it was probably 80% of my work got canceled, in the
Yeah.
beginning of 20, and then I mean, I literally at a moment where I was like, I don't know if you can I swear on this thing or not? Are we allowed to swear? Maybe not. Maybe I shouldn't
Yeah,
swear.
yeah, help yourself, help
No, I was
yourself.
just like, how the fuck is this gonna happen? You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, yeah.
And really, yeah, being really worried, and
Oh,
questioning my judgment, questioning my decision making and all of that. And I have two kids. Do you have kids, Ashanti?
No, I raised
Yeah.
my godsons, but no
Oh, there you go.
biological.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
totally. So, so it's like, yeah, but it's, you raise your godson, right? So it's like, there's a certain level of, I mean, there's responsibility there beyond, beyond just you. So it's like,
yeah,
there's definitely a lot of stuff happening, but I I feel like that's just an important part of life, man, to be able to, like learn from the lows. I think I
yeah,
forgot who
yeah,
said that, but it's only in the darkness can you see the stars.
yeah.
So I
Mm.
think that's really true.
Oh, I'm so glad you just said that. Oh.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Listen, I have a feeling that you and I are gonna. I have a feeling that something's about to happen after this. Like
Sweet.
I'm excited to reconnect. I'm
Yeah,
excited
I'd love
to
that.
be back in connection with you, and I want to.
Yeah.
Um, I want us to continue this conversation. I want us to continue a conversation where you and I figure how how us me can support the work you're doing, and
Yeah,
how
I'd
we
love
can
that. Vice
continue
versa.
serving. Because right now, more than ever, I think our schools, educators, parents are
For sure.
needing a lot of support. They may not even know where to go for.
For
Um,
sure.
and
Oh no,
so
I'm 100, man. If 100% with you, I'd love to support you in your work, and yeah, and thank you for offering to support me in mine. I think I feel a lot of synergy, man, between our work for sure, and
yeah,
like I'm just
yeah.
like also just in connection with you. So 100%, man.
Oh
Let's
man,
do it.
we're gonna do it. Well, let's do this.
Sounds good.
How about you tell folks where they should follow you, how they can find out about
Yeah,
the work you're doing, where the
awesome.
place, and we'll put all this in the show notes. But tell them how they can stay in
Yeah, for
touch with
sure.
you,
Yeah,
because you
absolutely.
definitely inspired
So
me today.
right on, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. So on Twitter, I'm at Roni_Habib. So you can find me there. But you also find my website, it's just eqschools.com. And when you go to eqschools.com, if you want to talk to me about doing any work with your school or even just your business, your organization. I do a lot of work with businesses as well. um, but just click on let's chat or let's talk, I think the name of the button is, and then it'll take you to my calendar and you can book a time and we'll just connect for like 30 minutes and just see if it's a fit. And I'd love to have that opportunity to learn whether I can be of support to you and your organization. um, and then, yeah, my email is just Ronnie at eqschools.com. And on Facebook, we're just, EQ Schools, the Facebook page. And you can also find me, Ronnie Habib, on Facebook and Instagram as well. I'm Ronnie Habib 81, I think, something like that. So, Ashanti, thank you, man, thank you so much for taking the
Thank
time
you.
to do this together. It's been such an honor and a pleasure, and if there's anything I can do, really, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to continue to our work together.
Let's do it. And I'm glad that I'm unfortunately that tragic situation that
Mhm.
happened caused this reconnection, but I think maybe everything happens for a reason. I think it was
Yep.
meant to happen, and at the
Yep.
right time, it was going to happen again. And so, for anyone out there, we had some difficult topics in this podcast, and so if anyone out there is um, um, considering or have been thinking and been having suicidal ideations, there is support out there. I want you to know that the national hotline
Mhm.
is will has a lot of support, and I want to make sure that you have access to that, and um, we'll put that. Actually, I'm gonna give you the number right now, like just to make sure that it's in the show. The number is 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-8255. There is help out there, and Johnny, thank you, Roni, Roni,
Yeah.
thank you
Yeah. You got
again
it, man.
for being a part of the Taking Off the Mask podcast. If you want to make a mask out there, you can make your mask anonymously at 100kmasks.com. We share our mask here publicly, but you can make one without anyone seeing it, and it helps add to this conversation around the masks we wear. So thank you all so much. Have a great day, and we'll look forward to seeing you all again soon.
Take care,
Cheers.
y'all.
Taking Taking Off the Mask podcast is produced by Ryan Louie. Editing, videography is also by Ryan Louie. Graphics by Kelly Wong. And a special thanks to the team at Ever Forward, Vanessa Cortez and Kevin Romero. And I'd like to thank everyone who's been a part of the creation of this podcast. As we hit this 1 year anniversary, we hope that everyone who's been a part knows that they're a part of the Taking Off the Mask experience. And we look forward to you being a part of it as well. If you liked what you heard today, please like, subscribe, and share. And we look forward to us continuing to offer conversations that matter. Take care. See you soon.